So let's talk about budgets here because I went through this in my younger years of thinking I needed so many things. When we decided to build a home, my husband and I were on very different budgets and paths. And I came to my senses about like, this is something that you're living in for a long period of time. And might not be perfect right now. And you can always add on to it later. But when looking at your clients, how often do you see it where couples don't see eye to eye?
Welcome to season 2 of the Real Estate Replay. This season, we're opening up the co-host chair to agents, lenders, and other professionals across the country. These handpicked co-hosts will help us dissect stories told by sellers and buyers and help point out the good, the bad, the unethical, or perhaps illegal things that they experienced. We'll learn what to look for, what to avoid, and how to not get screwed when selling or buying.
Okay, so this story is something that I hear a lot about and is likely pretty common when it comes to finding a home, which is just disagreements on budgets, wants, and needs. So this buyer is at odds with her husband about their home budget, and it's gotten to the point where their agent had to be mediator to sit them down and tell them what they needed to get on the same page. The wife wants a home in which they both have jobs, but wants to be able to buy something that they could afford on just one salary. The husband wants something updated, move-in ready, which would land them on the higher side of the budget and would need both salaries to survive. And so because this is so common and it hits a lot on impact of wants, needs, don't necessarily need the pressure to need stuff, and the impact of HGTV, social media, I wanted to bring on Hillary Mancuso to talk about this. So Hillary, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit. And we are both very, very chatty. So we're going to commit to keeping it short, but I know it's not going to happen. So go ahead.
I will try my best, but yes, we might be in a danger zone with the chattiness here. So I have been in real estate just about 3.5 years. I'm just under that mark. And I am with Quaint Oak Real Estate over in Eastern Pennsylvania. I have offices in Chalfont and Allentown. And I don't search out clients that are far away, but if I'm working with somebody, I will pretty much drive anywhere they need to go. So I like to consider that I serve anywhere from Philly all the way up to the Poconos if necessary. Lehigh Valley is kind of where I cut it off, like I said, as far as searching and stuff, but Eastern PA is the easiest description. Really, it's kind of cliche, but I just love houses. I am one of those people that got sucked into I'm technically a millennial, so I got sucked into HGTV. I watched it way too much for a long period of time, and it's just kind of fun. Like, I love the charming features you can find, odd, quirky things that you just don't see in every house. Like, I just have a love for things that are house related. So, that's most agents that are experienced say all the time, they're like, that's not a good reason. I love houses. You do a lot more than that. And that's true. You do a lot more than that, but I don't think it can't be the reason. So That's kind of what just got me in. I've always had an interest.
So let's talk about budgets here, because I went through this in my younger years of thinking I needed so many things. When we decided to build a home, my husband and I were on very different budgets and paths. And I came to my senses about like, this is something that you're living in for a long period of time. And might not be perfect right now. And you can always add on to it later. But when looking at your clients, how often do you see it where couples don't see eye to eye? Or it could even be not couples. It could be the parent and the sibling or the child that is purchasing the home, and the parents are telling them a different budget. Like, how common is it where people don't agree?
Often. I'm just going to say it's probably more common to find that than not. I've had a lot fewer couples that are 100% on the same page. They know exactly what they want. They're ready to go. And it's just, that makes it easy. So, and usually things aren't that easy. So most people have a degree of difference. The majority of clients that I run across, they're not completely off the same page. They're maybe half on the same page. It's usually more minor stuff. And, handling that, usually I am one to kind of play devil's advocate. Whatever perspective either party has, if there's a couple or a single person, I will always try to give them a different perspective, a different way to look at it. If they're looking at just the benefit, might say, well, what about, what happens if this? Or or would you be okay? Like, how would you feel about it if this or if that?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just give little prompts, and they're going to find their own path. I try not necessarily to direct them or answer questions or make any decisions for them. That's not my job. My job as their agent is to help guide them and advise them and kind of make them aware of things that they might not be thinking of. So, but ultimately they're the ones that have to live in it. They're the ones that have to pay for it. And they're a grown up. They're going to make their own decisions. So you can only get them so far.
So when looking at your clients, what do most budget for? Is it a percentage of income? Is it one salary? And knowing that you and I are both not financial planners, we'll put it out there right now. Like, you asked
Absolutely
my husband, my husband would laugh right now if he heard me talking about budgets and planners, because he's the budgeter, not me. But if you look at just on an average, like, what do most of your clients do? Is it percentage of income? Is it one salary?
I'm going to say I'm not 100% sure of that answer, because a lot of clients will come to me already with a budget in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my job to say, okay, have you looked at it from the best perspective of this? I usually will ask them, it might be a percentage of salary. If it's one person, if it's two people, they usually already have in mind what they are comfortable with from a monthly payment perspective. And so I tend to go more, not necessarily like, what do you make? I don't try to pry with all those details so much, because that's more of the job of the lender, who has to know certain details in order to approve them. And they're going to ask similar questions, and it's almost like that's another layer or a buffer in terms of maybe, again, making them think of something that they didn't think to question. Like, I will remind them that, once they have the house, they have other bills that come along with it. There is always a to-do list. There are always things they might want to budget for stuff. That usually comes up when somebody's had a home inspection, and you think about all of those things. So I just try to make sure they're having as much information and they get as many perspectives and think of as many things as they might not have thought of before they started looking. So,
right. I find it fascinating in the comment section. One person said that, what did she say? She said, my partner and I planned to buy our house on one income, which was good because he unexpectedly lost his job right in the middle of our house hunting process, and we were able to keep moving forward. Was nerve-wracking, but we knew we could make the payment. And luckily he began working again and have the ability to invest in some projects to make the house our own. But listen, we have to be honest. Mm-hmm. In this market, in this economy, it's probably not an option for some people to buy on one salary.
It may not be, definitely. Right. You have to look at a lot of different things, and every single person is in a different scenario. And I think it's really smart of that person who commented to look at it in the way of you could tell that they're really a planner or somebody who's prepared and, is not likely to get knocked down as easily because they've thought things out and, what if this and what if that? So I try to provide those kind of scenarios and get my clients thinking, just so that they maybe they think of something then that I've prompted and it makes them nervous, and they say, okay, maybe we should look, maybe I should reel it back. Like, because in the end, you're there to help your clients. It's not necessarily about what we all do it as a job. There is a paycheck attached. I won't, that's not, but that should kind of be in the backseat, in my opinion. You are there to help somebody, whether it's they're renting something, or it's an $80,000 house, or it's $1 million house. I put myself in their position. It doesn't matter what they're getting. You would want the same service if the tables were turned. So I provide the same service that I would want to receive.
Right.
I've gotten off track now. I'm going to stop myself.
No, you're good. You're good. This is going to be the theme of our whole podcast, because you and I are very similar.
I derailed the conversation here.
This isn't even half the stuff that I recorded. We talked like 20 minutes before we even started. Okay, so I was looking up some research, and it said that 61% of Americans say they're already living paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. Do you have any good tips for someone who maybe is looking to, I'm throwing you this wild card because I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, but I just thought about it. If you're on paycheck to paycheck, like, what are some things that if you want to buy, that you're stuck in this position that you can think to suggest to do to maybe help set some money aside, or be able to, any programs, I guess is a better word, that you could look into to help get yourself on track before you want to buy?
Gotcha. Well, there definitely is a planning aspect to it. And just know, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's going to take a little bit of time. Some people get anxious and they don't want to wait. You have to have some patience with it. That being said, there are definitely first-time home buyer programs, grants. There are things that you can do to get assistance. I mean, I I am one to generally be on the optimistic. I'm a glass half full type of person. So it is rare for me to tell somebody something's not possible. Anything's just about anything possible. And, I had a buyer who had a very low budget, only had, it was, I don't know, about $7,000 he could spend out of pocket.
Right.
And still manage to purchase and get all the things you want to buy in the midst of this pandemic. So it is possible. You just have to be willing to maybe not have that perfect house, or you need to have some things that you're willing to compromise on, or find the right property that would support the first time home buyer program that you might be looking at and getting assistance from. So there are definitely things that can be done. It's just going to require patience and finding the right people to help you, because some people are a lot more knowledgeable than others. I have connections with some lenders who, one of them is the top lender for the PHFA. They have some programs that are their KFIT program, I believe, which is Keystone Forgivable in 10 years. So certain things, which as long as you stay in the house for 10 years, you don't have to pay that money back.
Oh, okay.
There are many different programs that they have. And again, lending is not my area of expertise. I kind of, I have the connections and I can explain the basics, but it's definitely important to, find a lender, find an agent, find somebody, one, you are comfortable with, that you are okay, that is advising you and not necessarily telling you what to do. But secondary, talking to a few different lenders is great because not all of them can do the same things. Certain programs are available to everybody, and certain programs may not come from a state level. They might be lender specific and only be available through a certain lender. So research is important, I'll say.
Right. And I don't know if you have a NeighborWorks chapter in Philly, but we have.
I've heard of it. I'm not really familiar with it. I'm not sure if there's a chapter here, or I've just heard of it because of, online.
Right. We have a chapter here in Pittsburgh, and they're so awesome. They have educational courses. Mm-hmm. They have HUD counselors to kind of walk you through, hey, here's what you can expect. Talk about grants, have those conversations that are free. And I like it more than going online, because a lot of these online educational tools are really just a trap to lead consumers into somewhere else, right?
Agreed. It really depends on where you're finding the information. You have to make sure it's a credible source.
Right.
And that it's not just, hey, I heard it on TikTok, or I heard it on, I saw something on Instagram. I have had clients come to me and they're like, yeah, I'm already working with a lender. And they're like, yeah, I found it on TikTok. So it's, you just sometimes never know what you're going to get, where it's coming from.
You're right.
It's not always bad, but you have to be wary.
Right. And I saw that too. I said, where was it? I saw it said that more than 50% of Gen Z said they went to TikTok to discuss financial planning, or on Instagram for financial advice. And that's not that it's wrong. It's 100%. You could find some amazing people on there. But there are also people who are trying to be thought leaders without any expertise or background whatsoever on the subject. And there's also people on there who are just on there for clicks, right? So they have there's a whole doom and gloom section of the world's ending, or the market's going to explode, and here's why. But they're leading with certain facts and not sharing all the data, but they really just want you to click and go to their YouTube channel because they can get paid on YouTube. So I think it's just important that it's 100%. I learned stuff on TikTok. I learned how to clean stuff. I learned all kinds of stuff, but you got to check your sources. And just because somebody has high quality budget videos and they're telling you something doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, right? You have to do your own research too.
I think one important thing to keep in mind, especially with online and social media, is you may not necessarily know where those people are located physically within the country. And if they are in California and we're out here in Pennsylvania, there are a lot of differences from state to state in this country. Differences in lending, differences in just real estate rules, how you purchase a property, and you don't know where that stuff is coming from. I'm licensed as a realtor in Pennsylvania, so I can only buy and sell real estate or help people with that in Pennsylvania. I can't go to Jersey right across, even if I know some of the differences, but you really have to find somebody and know that where that information is coming from. And it might be accurate to their state, and it might not be accurate to where you are. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Same thing with lending. I mean, like every aspect of it, state to state differences, I think is a huge thing that nobody thinks of. I had come across, and I'm going to throw you for a loop because this is not in what we're going to talk about, but I had seen a post somewhere where somebody was they said, oh, I have the easy way to get around if like a probate or an estate sale, if your family member dies and they had just left the house to you, you can walk into the county recorder's office and there's this, you provide the death certificate and something else, and then boom, they can just transfer it to you. And so maybe that's accurate. And maybe there is a state out there where that's accurate. I've not really ever looked into it, but by all means, like I have seen the responses in the post. That's not accurate in Pennsylvania. So not entirely. So that's just one example that I have seen and I have come across where you really do need to, even if you don't want to hire a professional you're in, if you want to represent yourself and you don't want to have a realtor, you still should be contacting professionals and confirming the answers and really looking and researching these things for yourself because it can be very complicated.
Absolutely. And everything's different too. So like in Pennsylvania, the buyer's usually fronting the cost for like title and stuff. And I think it's Ohio, it's different. Mm-hmm. In one of the Carolinas or both, I don't remember which one, like you have to pay so much to the home seller, in addition to what you're putting down that you likely won't get back. So you're paying two different lump sums. And then when you close, like you're not, it's just so different. Right. And
I think that might be North Carolina. I actually,
is it North? Okay.
An agent from there and she was describing it to me and I was just like, I was like gasping going, oh my God, I never want to buy a house in North Carolina compared to the differences in PA.
Somebody was telling me like the height of the market down there, people were putting like $10,000 down. As not the like
non-refundable, like
the non-refundable, yeah, 10,000 down, which like, if you go through the whole process, like it's okay. But like, if you back out from a home inspection, even if it's something that like it's in your contract, you can back out, like the odds of you getting that 10 grand back aren't necessarily good.
Like, so it's like, almost zero. Yeah. That's how you explained to me. No, same thing. But, well, like one difference, from New Jersey, just because I know it's very close by here. So, but New Jersey to PA. So I run into a lot of people might look on both sides and I can only help with one side of the river here. But in New Jersey, I can't tell you all the differences, but they're a very attorney heavy state. So that's one difference too, that you will find from state to state is attorneys are heavily involved sometimes in one state, no matter whether you're using an agent or not, like there's a certain process. Like Pennsylvania is really, you don't have to contact a lawyer or attorney or whatever, unless you really want to and you want to pay for it. But that's something that's on the bottom of almost every form. And that I might be your agent, but I am not a lawyer. I can't tell you if you want to write something into a contract that it's going to be valid or what it's going to, what you might be missing. That's not, we don't do that. So
exactly.
I'm going to keep myself in a good place. Any agents out here or any state, is going to advise based on, look, I'm only a professional in real estate. I am not a professional in any other capacity, most likely.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about keeping up with the Joneses. So listen, it's always been there, right? So you and I are both, we're elder millennials. I hate to say elder, but we are on the cusp.
That's the correct term, elder millennials.
On the border, right? And so when we were when our group,
high school,
middle school or high school, HGTV was like full blown out in effect. And I read a few things about the impact of HGTV that I thought was incredibly interesting. It said that HGTV highlights things that may not be as important as you think in a home. So when you're looking at people shopping for a home and you see a consistent, like, oh, I need granite. I need this. I need something over and over and over again. You start to think that that's a necessity, but it's not necessarily. It's just based on these people. It's also unrealistic about budgets, renovation timelines, and results. There are multiple lawsuits from homeowners because of shoddy work. It's not even a real-time event. So you talk about house hunters and how they look at all these homes. To my understanding, it's already set up. The buyer already is under contract to buy a home. So it's not even like they're really comparing homes. They're already in contract with one of the homes. They just find two other ones to tour and make comments about it like they're interested, but it's really all set up. So it's not even real. And not to mention, I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole, but the TV agent dramas are 100% made up. So you look at Selling Sunset or whatever. I don't watch them. I should, I guess, but I don't.
I don't either.
Right. But it's just like following around this scripted reality series. And it even makes people be like, I want to be an agent, but none of what you see is like actually what's going on. It makes it look a lot more glamorous than it was. And it's also set up because I will tell you, do you remember the show Dance Moms? Do you remember that show with Abby Lee Miller? So in my past life, I ran a marketing for this hospitality group. And Dance Moms came in one day to record something of Abby Lee Miller going on a dating, like what do they call it? Speed dating?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. And it was 100% set up. Like they brought her in, they brought the moms in, and they didn't have enough actors. So they were pulling people from the restaurant to sit in. So the one speed dater that she ended up meeting was like one of the waitress's boyfriends sitting in there. And then the moms were filming outside and they were telling them what to say. So like that whole scripted of reality TV trying to look real is 100% not reality. I guess what I'm trying to get to. But you grew up on HGTV. So do you see the same thing, the impact? I mean, that's pretty much how it got you sucked into houses, right?
That's definitely one of the main things that got the hook in me, I should say. Yeah, so definitely. As far as like the house hunters, it maybe not being real, I definitely an agent that I have been connected with actually was on an episode of House Hunters, a local agent down here. And, I think he had, if I'm recalling, some kind of video or, there was something kind of explaining, like you got a little peek behind the scenes, maybe not the entire thing, but it is definitely like my understanding, which I don't know if it's 100% accurate either, is they're under contract already. And then they go and they find 2 other houses to tour. So it's all kind of, like you said, staged and set up. And dramas and stuff. I have the same viewpoint as you. I can only imagine that it's all like how much of it can you actually trust? They're there to get ratings. As far as unrealistic budgets and things that may or may not be important, I'm sure HGTV will play up certain things, like you said, like granite countertops or quartz countertops, but those things I think are more of wants than needs. It really is perspective. There might be a client out there who's like, no, I need to have a granite countertop. And if they have a good reason and it really is a need for them, great. It's a need for them. It's, I'm not there to tell them, yes or no, or black or white, or this or that. Like it's, that's not my job. I will, again, prompt them, give them questions and say, well, if this was a laminate countertop, like what would be bad about that? Or what's the downside for you? Like, why is it that you feel it's a want versus a need? Like I do try sometimes to dig a little bit deeper. Unrealistic budgets and stuff. I'm going to pull in the state to state difference again. You don't know necessarily, I mean, you'll get the idea of what state maybe they're in or what area they're in, but just in one state, you can get drastic budget differences when you go to a metropolitan city versus out in the suburbs versus way out in the boonies and you're up in a mountain town somewhere. Like it depends on who's around. And it can be very, very unrealistic. You just have to keep in mind where you are and who is doing, they might be contracting something out and you just don't know the details. So you can't always go on what they have on the screen. Right. The shoddy work, I was going to say, HGTV has a lot of DIY shows. I'm a big fan of DIY myself. Like who doesn't love to save a little bit of money if they can add more value? You got sweat equity in there and stuff. It doesn't mean it's not being done the right way. Right. But you just don't know. So that's why there are things like sellers' property disclosures. You'll in the Pennsylvania one, one of the first lines on the form is, do you have any expertise in contracting or real estate or, any of that? So you should kind of have an idea whether or not something could be shoddy. Maybe things make you go, HGTV is probably added to the possibility of that shoddy workmanship being out there with people making them think they can do more than they actually are capable of. Right. House aside, I used to watch. No, exactly. You don't, there are a lot of homeowners that might have done something themselves and not realize that they would have been required to get a permit to do that work. So those are all things though that you'll come across with your agent. That's a really good reason to have an agent. They have the expertise to know we need to check these things. We need to look here. If you don't do this and you find out this later on, it can cost you a lot of money. You're going to be responsible for these things. So having that professional, having an agent represent you, it is a very good idea for those things alone, I think. Right. And if your agent's not having those conversations with you, you probably need to get a different real estate agent, I think. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very good idea to interview more than one agent, unless you just, have only heard rave reviews and you know them and you have no reason, like people often go with the first agent that they think of or the first agent that they meet. So it's not bad though to do a little more questioning and a little more, till you're comfortable, they know, a fair amount more than you at, just to say the least.
Absolutely.
So,
right. All right. So then culprit number 2 is social media. And I want to say first to start with, because of social media. So in the 70s, it says that we saw between 500 to 1,000 ads per day. In 2007, we saw up to 5,000 per day. And now, as of last year, we see up to 10,000 ads per day. It also talks about how social media has increased depression, anxiety, fear of missing out, and addiction, not necessarily to certain things. It could even just be addiction to social media. It also talked about how more than 1/3 of people surveyed admitted to overspending in order to keep up with the fun they think their friends are having based on photos. And so, so when us elder millennials, I remember after I left college, Facebook was like popular and you had to have like a college account. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. But so that was what, I don't know. It was quite a bit ago.
A long time ago.
Right. I'm like, I don't want to do the math and date myself. But, overall, I think we're seeing our generation and younger, the first set of buyers that really grew up totally enmeshed in social media and comparing. And I can't help but wonder if that comparison is part of the trigger why people have incredibly high expectations or wants for their home. Do you see that impacting the conversations and things that people want and need?
With some of them, yes. It's definitely different with every single buyer. And like I said, I recently had one who, when she came to me, she had found her lender off of TikTok. Needless to say, she did not actually end up using that lender. But the expectations, like you mentioned Selling Sunset. That was one of the shows. She's like, oh my gosh, I just watched this episode. It was, so like
none of that's real.
It's there. But every person is different. Like she was very smart and very aware that it is a show. It is a drama. It's not, but I would get questions like, hey, I saw them do this on TV, or they just call, like, is it like that? Do you call the other agent and you're like, negotiating? Or,
if they answer the phone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think most that are in a position to buy a house are hopefully thoughtful enough to be aware that, maybe not all of that is real, and relying on and asking questions to your agent. I think, for the ones that maybe not even having a thought about, is that all fake? And where does it come from? What are they seeing that, not everything they see is accurate? I think, again, another really important reason for having an agent, having representation is having a good agent. They will kind of adjust and help to guide you to possibly make a smarter decision or give you advice to look into certain things. I try to not be a middleman as much as possible and just give suggestions that you have a conversation with somebody, or here's a few good people to start with, but do some research. Like you want to be checking on those things on your own, not just relying, like you said, on social media and what you see out there.
Right.
Because you just don't know. So
one of the tips they said, which I think is really important, is remember that influencers are paid to promote stuff. Because I think that's a very big ad segment now on how we ended up getting to 10,000 ads per day. Remember, it doesn't always mean that this influencer or what they did to their home. There are people that buy a bunch of stuff, fix up their home, take a bunch of pictures, and then return all that stuff. So there are ads pocketed in everywhere. And I think it also mentioned that if you feel like you're getting that fear of missing out or you're getting that comparison anxiety, to unfollow that person, not necessarily because they're not a good person, but because it's triggering something for you. And I think during the home buying process, that's super important because there's so many emotions already that I think you really need to have a clear mindset and not be distracted by additional wants and needs that maybe aren't fitting in your budget, right? Like you have to kind of clear your head and clear your space and really focus in on what you can afford and all these things that you could probably do later and not feel pressured to do them right now. Oh, and the other thing they said, and I've heard this, get off of the housing platforms. Like if you are getting ready to close, stop looking at homes online. Just stop doing it because it's going to mess with you. Like if you're feeling a little nervous or unsure, and then say a home pops up and you're like, oh, wow, I wish that home was available. Like, just stop. If you are under contract and you're to the finish line, just stop looking at stuff. It's not going to.
Myself, along with most agents that I know, as soon as you go under contract on a home, I have disabled their search on the MLS. You are not getting any more property notification. I have had clients actually remind me when once or twice I've forgotten, and they're like, hey, can you turn that off? I don't want to get the emails anymore.
Right.
But some people can't help it. If you're somebody who searches on Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com or whatever, I like to remind people that that's fine. You're going to search how you want. And if you love to look at it and it makes you happy, it's fine. But we usually have had a conversation about how things work in Pennsylvania, earnest money, that, you can't just, once you're under contract, you can't just back out because you like the neighbor's house better. You never thought they were going to sell it. And oh my goodness, now they're selling it. And you don't even care about this house anymore. You want the neighbor's house. Well, your consequence to that is the seller is probably just going to get to keep your money because you don't have a contractual reason. So those conversations we kind of have in advance. And usually that does cut most people off from they'll stop themselves, but it's just one of the parts of the process. I think people, when you're in that mode, sometimes you can't help but keep looking,
Right. I always tell people, I'm like, Zillow is like the Instagram of homes. Like, it's just going to show you the best parts, right? Like the edited, like Photoshop, like the best parts of the home. It doesn't mean that the interior is also going to match. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to it.
The location too. Like I always tell most buyers that I'm working with, have the expectation that anything you're looking at online, it's most likely going to be smaller or feel smaller in person. It's most likely, like, out of every 10 homes I look at, I'll say one of them maybe exceeds expectations. Somebody took accurate pictures, didn't quite do it justice, but it was enough to get you in there. And you're like, oh my goodness, when you walk in the door, you want to make an offer. And that's great. That's maybe 1 out of 10 homes.
Right. The fisheye lens and the low ceilings that you can't tell.
You get the ones that have the amazing pictures taken. You go in and it is a dump, and it's not like everything is shoddy workmanship. You look and there's unfinished stuff all over the place, like, so that the pictures can't pick up. And so that happens in a couple of them as well. But every other one, the most common thing is that I get from buyers is that it just feels smaller. The layout was the things that you can't really get from the online photos, or the location. Sometimes, again, occasionally you can tell in a picture, but the yard and the feel, like, how big is the lot? What is the ground like? You might get something that's got a soggy ground and you're just never going to want to utilize the yard. Every time your kids come in and play, and it's going to be mud. You can't see those things in pictures. So being there in person, definitely, like you said, the pictures online are made to make you want to come and take a visit. So
my favorite are the virtual ones, like the open door, virtually staged photos. And then I hear people that go in and they're like, this home is, I mean, obviously there's no furniture, but they're like, this is nothing close to what we thought it was going to look like inside or smell or any. I shouldn't say that. I should probably edit that part out, at least their name. They sell like over 20% of their inventory to investors instead of like putting them on the market for home buyers. So they're on my list. Okay. Final question. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I ask everybody this. What is one thing you wish consumers understood? It can be about the real estate process. It can be a misconception. It can be something that just irritates the hell out of you, that you wish they would know or understand better.
I'm going to say possibly how an agent gets paid, and that only one agent can get paid. And this definitely is, explaining this is due diligence on your part as an agent when you are meeting with clients, but not everybody does it. Everybody does things just slightly different.
Which I need to interject. We were surveying home buyers and we asked them, one of the questions was, did your agent explain how commission works? And a bunch of them were like, no, had no idea. It was never explained how they got paid. Not a clue. And I think NAR did a survey too. And they said like over 30% of home buyers could not explain how their agent got paid. No one told them. But so go ahead. Yes.
My conversation with buyers is constantly evolving myself. I mean, I'm an agent who I like, if I haven't already said the word, I like people to be comfortable. I don't like to be awkward. I try to give the same service I would like to receive. So I'm working at having people sign things sooner, or, some agents right away, they won't even show you a house until you sign a buyer agency contract. And you probably technically shouldn't. But every agent is different enough. And there are so many out there that don't have, an agency agreement, yet they're acting as the agent and the consumer as the client when they don't actually have that relationship because they haven't signed an agreement. So the commission and how that works, the payment, how an agent gets paid is part of the discussion when you are having a consumer sign a buyer agency agreement or a listing agreement and you were entering into that relationship. So I think sometimes, again, it's on us as agents. But sometimes it may not be explained well. I have run into many clients who I'm explaining it and they've worked with other realtors or had touched base and never come across the explanation, or they heard something, but it wasn't really accurate. So I think, it is more on us as agents to make sure that we're explaining that. But it only helps us to do that as well, but it should be there for the consumer, and everybody's got a slightly different understanding. So that's one thing that I wish was a little bit more, I don't want to say common knowledge, but it was a little more clear of an understanding that was just out there across social media, across the internet. Only one agent can be paid, people. Only one agent. So if you're having multiple people show you houses, make sure that they're aware. It's not illegal to have multiple agents show you houses. You can have contracts that are, non-exclusive. So you can work with multiple agents as long they should all be aware of it, and that knowing that only one of them is going to find you a house and actually get paid. So otherwise, if you're doing that and not telling people that you're working with other agents, then you're kind of doing a disservice to somebody who thinks that they're solely working.
Right. Or like you see a house with agent A, but later you end up putting an offer on that same house with agent B, then there's a big debacle of,
procuring clause.
Yeah. Agent A was the one that really brought you there. So they should get the commission, but agent B wrote the offer and there's no signed agreement. And granted, that goes on behind the scenes, usually that conversation behind the buyer, but still, you're right. Like, if you choose to work with multiple people, just be transparent about it.
Yeah. And so, and some people don't necessarily even intend for that to happen. They might not really be like heavy into the house hunting. And they're just like, oh my goodness, my dream house just popped up. And I don't even know if I want to buy it or if I'm in the market to buy a house, but I really just want to see it. If I loved it, then maybe I'll be serious, right? They might think just calling and they want to go see one house will get them out there. And then they say, oh no, that wasn't the one. And then a month later, they do the same thing. And maybe the first agent is still keeping up with them and connecting with them and stuff like that. So just, I think, like you said, being transparent, having clear communication with whomever you're working with. An agent can still show you a house and you don't have to be their client, but again, the conversations need to happen and the clarity, the transparency needs to be there, I think.
And I think you'll find that a lot when you do the schedule a tour. Like, to be clear for buyers out there, when you hit that schedule a tour, usually Zillow, Realtor.com, it's just an ad lead gen for them. So they're sending you to an agent who's willing to pay a ton of money for your data that will meet you there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that happens. So every time you go to like schedule a tour, it's probably going to be a different agent because they're all paying for that lead generation service. So if that's your route of going to look at homes, like, you're going to get someone different every time, and you'll probably end up in this scenario. But thank you for this. I feel like we went off at least me, like, I find this so fascinating, the whole impact of social media.
I derail every conversation I have.
Philosophical than it probably should have been. I think it's important. Like, if you're buying a home, just be realistic. It doesn't have to be perfect, because if you're going to be there for a long period of time, you could eventually make it perfect. And if you find yourself doing things for pressure of friends or family, or feeling like you need to keep up, like, you're just going to damage yourself. Like, that doesn't need to happen. Yeah. Just worry about you.
Want to share your experience with us? Drop by therealestatereplay.com and submit your story, or even ask us a question.